Okay, and welcome back to part 3 of my gay prison survival guide. I want to thank everybody that's been liking and subscribing, and everyone that's signed up for my website, www.straightfelon.com. Lots of great stuff on there. Anyways, let's get into it. So, my first two editions of this, I kind of had to play devil's advocate, at least with showing the potential risks. And I didn't mean to like really dissuade, but I just wanted to show those. So in part 3 here, I'm going to go over basically what it all comes down to, which is standing up for yourself. And this could be applied to, like, it doesn't have to be gay, but I'm just going to break it down. I've said this before. There's a certain threshold of perceived victimhood of which, you're going to get tested in some way or another, usually with somebody like stealing your stuff or disrespecting you. And usually, I mean, for one, being white is a big one. Unless you're like, if you're really big and covered in tattoos, a lot of the time that's enough. But for the most part, if you're white, you're going to have to stand up for yourself at some point. If you're real small, and like I said, if your sexuality is any different. So if if you choose to go in there and be, open about who you are, that is just something you have to understand that, your experience will be a lot better if you're able to stand up for yourself. And you'd be surprised, like, most of them do in there. You got to figure, in MDOC at least, most of the sissies are from like East Detroit or, somewhere like that. So they definitely, this ain't the first fight they've been in. They've probably been getting in fights their whole lives, if they, choose to be who they want to be. So it's not, like I said, that's one of the things they tell you, don't mess with them when you go in there. They're not weak. They're not afraid. So anyways, this point I think could be illustrated best through a story of somebody I saw who came in there and chose to be openly gay and was threatened, tested for it, and responded in the right way. And everything, kind of worked out well for him. So enter Pound Cake. And that's the other thing. They always got a goofy name. Like in MDOC, there's famous ones. There's like Beyonce, Megatron, and, Peaches, stuff like that. So Pound Cake, Anyways, Pound Cake, I talked about, trying to hide being gay. This Pound Cake kind of had to try to be seen as gay. They were a little bit older. They said later they were on their C prefix, which means they've been to prison. That's their third time in prison. So they're probably in their mid 40s, balding, so they put like the Skittles. You ever see that? Like the Skittles makeup they'll do in prison? Like, yeah, Pound Cake did that. Like, she kind of had to put it out there. This wasn't the most naturally effeminate person. And that's a real common thing. I don't know exactly why, but there's a lot of those gay dudes that when they go into prison, I get the feeling they weren't lumberjacks in the free world. Like they weren't 8 out of 10 on the masculinity scale. But for some reason, there's like almost this comfort in really dialing up the femininity, acting like a femme. I don't know how you say it, like acting effeminate. Like I really doubt, even though like I said, I doubt those sissies are walking around with makeup in the world. You know what I mean? I think just in the world, they're probably just like your average gay dude. And I don't know why exactly. I've hypothesized that, in prison, it's so, people can't conceptualize like being attracted to a man. Like somebody like me, somebody who's like comfortable in their sexuality and dates trans women and is also, kind of muscular, that they wouldn't get that. It's almost easier to accept somebody who's so openly effeminate and acting so different that it's like out in the open and, I can be like, oh, this person is I'm me and they're them. I don't know what it is. I think it somehow makes other people more comfortable. That's just my opinion. Anyways, so Pound Cake. Pound Cake was what was called a porter, which is kind of like a janitor in prison. And this all happened in quarantine. So from what I understand, like every state prison system has an equivalent to quarantine. I think in California, it's like San Quentin. So, when you get sent to prison, they have to figure out your security level, if you have AIDS, all that, your meds, if you're on psych meds, all that kind of stuff. So they usually send you to a facility where you're heavily locked down for like a month or two while they sort that all out. So in Michigan, that's quarantine. So basically when you're in there, man, you don't leave the cell except to go eat and then for like the occasional blood draw or appointment. So anyways, Pound Cake was one of the only people who was able, to like leave the cell during the day and she would like mop the floors and get people toilet paper. And she was cool because some of them, won't do shit for you. If you need a bar of soap, needed some toilet paper, old Pound Cake would run her ass down there and get it for you. But she was facing a little bit of anonymous hate. So let me pull up a picture of what quarantine is like just so you can like see the layout. Okay, so as you can see, like if you're, it's just a big wall of cells. So people can just yell shit, throw shit anonymously, and it can be a little bit hard to track down who it is. So of course, people are yelling out all kinds of things. Quarantine's a little bit different than prison, man. People are still learning the rules. They're locked down all day, so they're acting crazy. And yeah, they were saying some disrespectful stuff. You can probably guess. So one day I'm in the chow hall, and this was like one of my first real encounters with Pound Cake up close. I'm in the chow hall, and I'm sitting at one end of the table, and Pound Cake is over there with her boyfriend. There was this dude who looked like kind of a younger season 5 Walter White, like bald head and jazz man sunglasses. Like this dude had straight up X-Men sunglasses, like hella dark, and they were always together. If the yard was open, like Pound Cake, they'd be walking hand in hand together, always together. And from the line, there's like this old school black prison predator. And I'm talking about prison predator and proud of it. Like not even trying to be subtle about it. And he's yelling out to Pound Cake and the boyfriend, ladies, hey meat lovers. Cause it's pizza day and there's like these little bits of meat on the pizza. Hey, meat lovers, I see you some meat love. And finally Pound Cake's like, oh, I should have known you were talking to me, and like waves over. And I thought it was kind of weird. Remember that? Because I was like, wow, she's doing that right in front of the boyfriend. That's strange. So anyways, as I'm leaving the chow hall, I see that predator again, and he's like talking to this group of young kids. And I'll never forget this. He goes, I'm the reverse rapist. And he goes, come up on you with a knife? Like, don't stop or I'll stab you. And these kids are like, that's like straight up, he's cutting into them. That's like, you don't talk no sexual shit like that to another man in prison unless you're trying something. And really, they should have responded, violently. That he's basically, that's the first step of pressing somebody for sex. And they didn't. They were scared. They like kind of tried to laugh it off. And I was like, ooh, damn, you just got punked. But anyways, talk about not getting punked. So anyways, I suppose that Pound Cake eventually must have done some detective work and figured out who was yelling and throwing trash and water at her off the tier. Because like I said, she can be out all day, so she can kind of like sneak around and like listen. Somehow she did the detective work and figured out who it was. And I was on the second tier, and it was some dude way down on the end. So like I said, we only got out for meals, but Pound Cake was out whenever she wanted. So I assume what happened is it was breakfast one morning, and they cracked the doors. And when this dude, is just waking up, getting out of bed, as soon as he walks out of those doors, Pound Cake cracks him with a padlock. That's like, when you're in quarantine, you can't really get access to like metal and like real weapons, but you can get a padlock. So, you put a padlock on the end of a belt, you could kill somebody if if you kept at it. You could really, that's brain damage. It's kind of scary, to think about. You could get unlucky and one hit kill somebody. But anyways, it's the morning, so it took me a couple seconds to get out of bed. And by the time I hit the tier and was walking down, dude's already like laid out on the ground. And the COs must have known just from how quickly it happened that it was probably Pound Cake. So she got taken to the hole. She ended up getting out 2 days later. So apparently the dude didn't tell, or they couldn't prove it or whatever. But anyways, as I'm going down there for breakfast, this is the most M. Night Shyamalan twist. This blew my mind. As I'm getting called down there for breakfast, I see a CO, and he's standing next to the boyfriend with the jazz man glasses, and he calls me over, and he's like, hey, walk this guy to chow. And I'm like, okay. At this point I was scared. It wouldn't even pop into my mind to question a CO. So I'm walking with the dude, and get this, they weren't a couple. That dude was blind, and that was part of Pound Cake's responsibilities, was to walk this dude everywhere. You know what I mean? And, I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, man, everybody thinks we're a couple, but, she's actually all right, talking about Pound Cake. And prison is such a public place. It's hard to hide anything. People find everything out. But also, man, it's just like the worst rumor mill possible. I mean, everybody in there was convinced they were a couple, and it was not even anything like that. Okay, I forgot this in my original recording, but I had to bust out the camera and add it in. So, anyways, the blind guy was in there for cooking meth, and I thought that was the craziest. That was the crazy. He showed me the paperwork, man. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I guess he was explaining that he can like see a little, I guess, but I was like, dude, that's insane that you were doing that. Anyways, yeah, that blew my mind, man. I had to add that. So, anyways, I think it was about 48 hours later, Pound Cake came back, got her porter job again, up and down the tier, and nobody messed with her again. In fact, it's hard to say respect. You know what I mean? It's not, I'm going to be honest, prison's an extremely homophobic place. What it more so is a lack of disrespect. And when you're one of those targeted groups, to not get, in there, like a minority group, the equivalent of a minority group in prison, when you're one of those group and you don't get disrespected, that's kind of the equivalent of respect in prison, just because it's about as much as you can hope for. But the only way you're going to get it in a place like that is if you respond with violence. And that goes for everybody, but that is just a very, very strong reality. If you choose to go in there, you probably will have to stand on something. And it's not always going to be where you have to get a weapon and really go hardcore. For me, I got in a fist fight that I lost. I got my ass beat. But guess what? Like, nobody stole from me again. Because there's always going to be somebody that doesn't fight back. There's always going to be somebody that folds. And that's the worst thing you can do. Because then it's like, at first it's just like a real hardcore predator that comes at you. But then once you fold and everybody sees you're weak, then it's like it's like the hyenas are out there. It's like everybody who wasn't maybe didn't have enough heart to go up on you themselves, but now they see somebody. So you get what I'm saying. It's not the place, and it's unfortunate like that. I've seen a lot of people who, for lack of a better word, their prison careers were stunted right away because that first incident of being tested, they folded and they didn't stand up for themselves. So, it's hard to, you have to look at the demographics of people that go to prison. It's not the type of gay guys that go to prison. They aren't on committees in the world, what I mean? Like adopting kids and stuff. It's a tougher crowd, man. So, they're not exactly, scared of fighting. Like I said, you have to keep that in mind. It's an entirely different culture. When you listen about my stories about Gay Mike, he was a little bit removed from that. He was just a guy who had an addiction, and he didn't really fit in with that gay prison culture because he was like that. Yeah. So anyways, thank you so much for listening. The holidays have been really great. This stuff has like totally changed my life. I thank you guys so much. I'm trying to stay more consistent. I just got over this cold. I think I'll make maybe an update on the stray dog I found. Anyways, please leave some comments on other stuff you would like to hear related to like gay life in prison or whatever. These are always very successful videos. As always, please like and subscribe. Check my website out, and thank you.